What do you know about the Queen and royal assent? Because our Queen Elizabeth, the present Queen, in 1967 gave royal assent for the 1967 Abortion Act, gave royal assent for gay marriage. In between these two, in the 70s sometime, gave royal assent for the open worship of foreign gods. She's our defender of the faith, Miguel.
Well, throughout her reign, she's been the most ecumenical and liberal queen that this country's had. Elizabeth I was a conservative evangelical. She was more biblical in that respect. It's hard to trust whether her form of Christianity was genuine. As far as I'm aware, there are a lot of members within the royal family who are Freemasons. For example, Prince Philip is the head of the United Grand Lodge of England in London, and he's married to the Queen of England.
I just don't understand how she can say with a straight face she's the defender of the faith, that she finds a lot of comfort in her Christian faith, and yet gives royal assent.
Yeah, perseverance of the crown is more important than religion.
I upset a couple of royalists by saying about this royal assent stuff. A true Christian would never give royal assent. Their counter-argument to me was the Queen has to do what the public want.
Not necessarily.
She was forced into it by the public to give royal assent.
There are things that were putting pressure on the monarchy where the monarchy didn't cave into what the public wanted. And so she is not a public servant. We are the servants of the Queen, because in the passports it says we are Her Majesty's subjects.
She's not our subject. No, we're her subjects. Yes. It's nonsense then, isn't it, that the Queen felt that she had to give royal assent for the 8 million babies that have been killed since 67.
Well, it's not just to do with abortion. It boils down to the fact that the way society is, we're in a post-Christian country.
But that's why we need a defender of the faith, surely.
She's only a defender of the Church of England, not the defender of the Bible. In terms of faith, she's a defender of the faith in terms of the Anglican religion.
But they use the Bible, so surely her job description, she's failed.
They do, but the Anglican Church isn't really Christian in many respects. I would question whether it is because, even though it may hold to the Westminster Confession of Faith, it may hold to the creeds, it may hold to other aspects, they do include things like homosexual priests. They do, to a proponent, support the ideals of same-sex marriage or same-sex unions. They do, to a proponent, support interfaith. There was a movement within the Church of England called ARCIC. ARCIC is an acronym which I can't remember what that means. And it was a movement set up to unify the Anglican Commune and the Catholic Church, that the Archbishop and the Pope may come together to represent Christianity.
Oh dear, Miguel.
But it failed. Because what it is, it's more of a liberal thing. So they then set these other movements within that.
Could you find, if you looked hard enough, a born again, on their way to heaven, saved Christian in the Anglican Church today?
I do believe there are Christians in the Anglican Church who are conservative evangelicals who believe in the orthodoxy of Scripture. I've met a few, but there are those that are very liberal. There is a big mixture going on. But the problem is, within the Church of England, that's all they've known. They don't know anything outside that. I make a distinction within the Church of England because you've got three aspects. You've got broad church, which is everything. You've got the low church, which is the evangelical Protestant arm of the Church of England. And you've got the Anglo-Catholic church, which is high church within the Church of England. Ones that tend to be Orthodox are, yes, they go to the Church of England, but they don't subscribe to same-sex marriage, or they don't subscribe to ecumenism. These are what we call the true Protestant Anglicans. Within the Church of England, there are low churches that are so liberal.
If you're an Anglican and you have evangelical views, wouldn't the sensible thing be to
they should have listened to Bishop Ryle, who was the bishop.
J.C. Ryle.
He was the Bishop of Liverpool.
Is that J.C. Ryle?
Yes, yeah. J.C. Ryle, because he wrote telling Anglicans to leave the Anglican Church. There is a breakaway movement from the Church of England called the Church of England Continuing. They are Anglicans, but they're not part of Lambeth. They split and formed their own They wanted to go back to the traditional conservative Anglicanism.
But isn't this like Luther staying in the Catholic Church and trying to reform it from the inside? It's an impossible situation.
They're not trying to stay in the Anglican commune. They're trying to reform Anglicanism in terms of being separate from the mainline Anglican Church.
Why don't they just let it die and join an evangelical church?
They wouldn't do that. They're more lean to Reformed teaching, so they're very much against Rome, as opposed to the mainstream Anglican Church that isn't against Rome. So the split was caused because of the divisions with the nature of interfaith, ecumenism, liberalism. Postmodernism was another aspect. They got so angry they formed their own denomination within Anglicanism, but they're not part of the Anglican Church.